my name's Bea Wilson. I'm a food writer. I'm the author of several books, and the most recent is The Heart-Shaped Tin, Love, Loss, and Kitchen Objects. The backdrop to the book is that my husband of more than 2 decades, I thought we were happily married. It was the pandemic. And at the end of the first lockdown that we had in the UK, which was June 2020, he quite suddenly left. And I just hadn't seen it coming. Yes, maybe he seemed a little bit more distant or distracted than usual, but plenty of people did. And I remember realizing something had been wrong about a week earlier and saying we should talk. We arranged to have a walk and we were sitting on a park bench. And I just thought, well, I'll just start by asking him, do you still love me? And he said, no, I don't love you. And I haven't loved you for 3 years, maybe four. And it was something about that 3 years, maybe four, that just got me. A few months after that, after he'd gone, and I was in the depths of trying to process, but not even beginning to process, I had this heart-shaped cake tin in the house that all of those years earlier had been shiny and new. And it was the tin that I had bought in this state of great hopefulness to bake my own wedding cake. He was a wonderful man in so many respects, my ex-husband, but he was much pickier about food than I was. And he liked fruit cake, which is the traditional wedding cake in Britain, but he didn't like glacé cherries, which usually get put in the cake. So I thought, that's fine, no problem. I'm going to make my own wedding cake. So this object was this talisman of love, really. And I'd kept it all these years and I'd baked cakes for the kids in it. And then one day, in this grief-stricken state, I was walking past it. Clearly, what must have happened is I must have kicked it. But what seemed to happen was that the tin jumped out and landed at my feet in front of me. It just felt like a sign, as if I was going slightly mad, and even the objects in my house seemed to be grieving along with me. I turned to music, I turned to books, I turned to friends, the value of friends I'd always known. And then I really, really learnt the truth of that during that period. But I also got through it through recalibrating my relationship with some of the objects in my house. That when you've been together as long as we had, I was 23, I think, when we got married. I was late 40s by the time he left. So quarter of a century's worth of stuff was associated with him. I felt as if his hands were imprinted in the wood of the kitchen table. I felt as if his lips were still on the mugs that I was drinking my coffee from. You have all these objects that feel infused with the love and affection and togetherness of being a family, a happily married, as I thought, couple with 3 kids. I realized there were certain things I simply had to get rid of. Some of them were easy, like going in the wardrobe and seeing all of these empty coat hangers where his shirts had hung. Well, I could easily take those to the recycling centre. And then others I agonized about more, what to do with my wedding ring. It wasn't a precious or expensive wedding ring, but it was kind of everything to me for all of those years. It felt too weighty and momentous to chuck it or give it away. So I just put it in this little bowl in my bedroom. But every time I walked past it, it reminded me of him in all of the wrong ways. And then I came across this recipe in a Syrian cookbook. It was a lentil dish, deeply fried onions, fresh cilantro, and it had these little croutons on top. But the woman in the book had made the croutons using her wedding ring. And I thought, this is great. I can make it useful. And suddenly it wasn't this sad, dejected ring belonging to a rejected, sad person. It was a very tiny cookie cutter. And that was the most profound repurposing of an object that I did. You've got to make space for yourself because grief has its own momentum. You can't hurry yourself through heartbreak. Him leaving almost instantly, even though I was very, very sad, I could see that it created space as well as sorrow. He was a bit picky about food, and food's my passion because I'm a cook. And I realized, oh, I can just cook anything now. Our shared meals had felt like one of my great joys in life. And then I'd been mum, I'd been cooking for my three children, but sometimes then I went off to his house and I was left all alone to cook. And that was, to start with, it was a bit startling. How do I just cook for one? And then that was a gift. And as I was writing my cookbook, which was called The Secret of Cooking, I did a whole chapter on meals for one. I'd already pitched the book as having some recipes for one, and I'd written that you have to treat yourself as an honored guest. But then I was actually living the truth of it, that the more you really take care over meals, even if when it's just for you, that's the most important cooking you can do, it quite genuinely changes your relationship with yourself. Be very kind to yourself. Don't hurry yourself, but know that each of the things you're doing, whether it's yoga, whether it's phoning a friend, whether it's giving yourself time and space to read a book, even if it's a busy day, whatever it might be, you might not get the benefit of it today, but maybe a week from now, you'll see that you did that, or a month from now, and you will feel different and you will have a new life. And something about the process of my husband leaving freed me up to think, well, I've had all of this change that I didn't want and didn't choose. Why don't I look afresh at what I do want and what I would choose? And those were radical questions. I'd never really in my life asked myself, what are my needs and wishes here? You can't take away the trauma that you've been through, but there will be things where you can actually say, this is what I want now, and this is who I am. And that's an incredibly powerful thing.